Welcome to the CISO series video chat. You see only two of us. We're having some technical issues, so I'm going to be drawing in some of you until we get our guest on. Paul Lanzi, would you come on and join us? I just noticed you were here. Did you please, Andrew, invite Paul Lanzi. You're going to play our game at the very beginning here, and we're going to get this rolling, and hopefully we'll get our other guest onto the show right now. This, by the way, is Vivek Bhandari, who is with the Senior Director of Product Marketing over at VMware, and he is one of our guests today. So our topic, by the way, today is Zerotress. And is Paul Lanzi coming on, Andrew? Andrew, let me know in the back. Paul Lanzi joining us? Is Paul Lanzi joining us? Yes, no? Invite somebody else if he's not. Invite sent. Paul, join us. I'm hoping Paul's joining us. No
we need
connection.
Paul.
All right. Let's invite Jonathan Waldrop. He was get Jonathan Waldrop on. Can we get Jonathan on? And we will have him on, and he's going to play our opening game right here. Again, the topic is Zerotress. That's why we have a lot of people on. Invite sent.
Paul saying invite him again.
No, invite Paul again. Somebody, invite somebody. I'll get you on, Paul, later. All right, there's Jonathan Waldrop wearing his winning CISO series jacket. It looks great on you. All right, Jonathan, I'm sorry. I'm going to put you on the spot right here. You're going to be playing a game with me. It's going to play called Explain It to Me, and I'm going to start with you, Vivek. Do me a favor, just explain to me, what do people think Zerotress is, but it is not? Vivek.
Okay, so Zerotress is a strategy to stop your crown jewels, which is your data, from being exfiltrated or corrupted. What it is not a product. It is not identity. I'll stop.
You'll stop. Okay. No, that's good. All right. Now, Jonathan Waldrop, I want you to do me a favor. Explain this topic, which the topic is Zerotress, but which is with as much jargon as you possibly can. Go for it.
Zerotress is a combination of IDAM, MFA, DRM, and ZTNA to protect your crown jewels.
Very good. All right. Now, Vivek, if I was talking to your grandparents, and seriously, I'm talking to your grandparents if they're still alive, maybe they're not. We can say even your parents.
Yeah.
But how would they explain this topic? If they were about to explain it to this entire group, how would they explain it?
Okay, that's so Zerotress is it's really about going through airport security and assuming there's a malicious actor amongst the travelers.
That's good enough. I'll take that. And Jonathan, you're going to close this out. What would be the thumbnail image to describe what Zerotress is? If you could create it as an image, what would that be?
It's going to be about ensuring the right person has the right identity, has the right authentication, and the right access to only the data they need at the time they need it.
Can you describe that in a picture?
The picture would be no.
No, that's a good answer. I'll take it because it ain't easy. I'm with you 100%. Totally not easy. Let's start the show. Jonathan, you're going to stay with. Thanks for opening the show.
Welcome,
Let's bring Paul
everybody.
Lanzi in.
The CISO series video chat is ready to begin.
Jonathan, by the way, I should mention he's with Insight Global. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the CISO series video chat. My name is David Spark. We are doing quite an unusual show today, being that we have one guest and we're going to rotate a bunch of other guests on as well. Do extend the invite to Paul right now to start it. Let me actually, hold on, I need to share my screen right now to show everybody what we're going to be talking about today. And hopefully you're still working with our other guest, who is Richard Rushing, who's the CISO over at Motorola Mobility. Anyways, our topic is hacking Zerotress, an hour of critical thinking of how to simplify the journey to Zerotress architecture. Our guest, if we can get him, Richard Rushing, the CISO of Motorola Mobility. But right now we'll have a series of rotating guests. And look, we got Paul Lanzi, who's the COO and co-founder of Remediant. And also we have Vivek Bhandari, who's the Senior Director of Product Marketing at VMware as well. Thank you to VMware for sponsoring this very video chat. We greatly appreciate it. And all these different ways to participate. You can participate in the chat room. You can submit your worst idea for validating Zero Trust. I'm sure you've got some bad ideas on that one. Please. Also submit, how do we make this 10% better? You can vote in the polls, join us on video with Bring Me On. Guess what? I'm going to bring a lot of you on. Oh, Drew Brown is here. Drew, I hope, please let us know if you're going to be available to play the I Object game later. We'll want you as well. And I see John Procap's here and Dutch is here. All people I like to harass, so plan on it if we can't get Richard on. And ask a question anytime that you see at the bottom of the screen. You can ask a question. I see one is coming already, and vote for your favorite question. All right. Today's schedule, explain it to me, which we just did. Also, worst idea for measuring a cyber risk, just label it as bad idea. Or measuring a cyber risk. Oh, I want to say for measuring Zero Trust. That's what I wanted to say. But I don't know why I didn't change that. That should be Zero Trust. How do we make it 10% better? Poll live for the worst idea for measuring Zero Trust or for figuring out Zero Trust. We're going to play the I Object game. And then at 30 minutes past the hour, we have a brand new game called This Totally Sucks. I'm totally excited about this game. It's brand new. We've been working on it. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. Then the poll is going to go live to how do we make it 10% better? The worst idea contenders will face off. Last questions and final advice. And then we will have our meetup. By the way, next chat, if you see the link at the bottom of the screen, is our last video chat of the year, and that'll be December 17th, next Friday. Topic will be hacking virtualization. You can click on that link at any time during this event to register for next week's video chat, of which we would all love you to do, because again, if you register early, you'll be a part of this. And by the way, thank you, Paul, for joining us. All right, Vivek, I'll start with you because this is all a shock to Paul that he's been participating with this. We don't even know if he's showered at all.
I haven't. I came from my workout and I was like, okay.
There you go. Oh, my God. But we see a beautiful Christmas tree in the background. All right. I'm going to start with this, Vivek. Why is Zero Trust architecture complicated as compared to an identity-based method of security, which, by the way, I know Paul's going to have a good answer to this as well. Vivek, what's your take? Why is this so much harder than just good identity-based management?
So, right off the bat, actually, I do not think Zero Trust is complicated. Like, that's a misconception. It doesn't have to be complex. Zero Trust is about all the strategies that you would put in place, assuming there's already an attacker on your network, right? Somebody somewhere is already there. And so what are the right controls you would want to put in place to make sure that only the right sort of person has access to only the resource that they're really looking for and are authorized to access?
Okay.
Now, sorry. Did that answer?
No, that's a good answer. I'm sorry. I'm going to take this to Paul. He works for Remediant, which does privilege access management. So why do you think, and do you agree that Zero Trust is not complicated, and how is it different than just identity management?
Well, I'm actually going to argue with the premise of the question as well. So
okay, sure, go for it.
This one, David. Sorry, but
no.
In getting back to the real question, like what model would you draw, or what picture would you draw for Zero Trust? I really see it as a triangle, and the points of the triangle are the device, the identity, and the network. And Zero Trust is really rethinking the security boundaries between those three, right? So there used to be inferred security relationships and trust as an overused term, but security relationships between those three things. Zero Trust is all about rethinking, shaking those up. And so identity has always been part of Zero Trust. And doing identity well is a critical part of doing Zero Trust critically well.
Okay. How do you take that, Vivek?
No, I would agree. I would agree with Paul. And then the only other thing I would add is in that triangle, I would actually make it a square, and I'd throw in a fourth one, and I would bring in workload. You know why? Because at the end of the day, what is it that we're really trying to protect? Not my identity, not your identity, not the endpoint, but it's ultimately that workload, which includes data, right? So all these components that make up our applications, the data, that's ultimately what we're looking to protect. And that's really a critical component, which a lot of people forget, because you cannot assume that, identities will not get stolen. Credentials, theft happens all the time. So how do you still protect your crown jewels is always got to be at the center of it.
Yeah, I would stick workload
by the way,
and endpoint together, but I think you make a good point, Vivek.
By the way, Paul, do me a favor. When Vivek's talking, or myself for that, can you mute your microphone? Because we're getting some serious echo from you. But there's a really good, but when you're speaking, definitely unmute. Really good trivia question that just came in. And so I want your answers if you think you know, and also the audience as well. This comes in from Tarun Desikan, and he asks, what other phrases in the past have been used to describe zero trust? I think this is a good trivia question. Do you guys know? Paul or Vivek? Anyone in the chat room? Because, there's no doubt we've talked about this before, but we haven't used this term zero trust before.
Well, technically, I think Beyond Core was probably the first term that was used to describe the zero trust. Google's Beyond Core model was the first term to be used to describe the zero trust concept. But that may not be the answer he was looking for.
Okay, well, I'm interested, Tarun, you're going to be able to answer. Anyone else, had they been posted? One trust, somebody said, some trust me, Beyond Corp, no password, oh, come on, okay. Tarun, everyone's failing, so nobody knows. All right, Tarun, you're going to have to reveal the answer. It looks like nobody knows this one. But let me ask you one more question, Paul, and then I'm going to bring on another guest right now. So Zero Trust has to span multiple architectural environments. It has distributed, multi-cloud, and work from home. Do you feel something is changing in each environment, or is this part of the triangle you were describing? How do you see Zero Trust changing as you're going from environment to environment?
I think, so what you're talking about from environment to environment, like meaning from the office environment to the home environment to the
right, just what I said. And also like where your networks exist. Are you multi-cloud, are you on-prem, things like that?
It certainly gets more complicated, right? So you go back to the workloads that Vivek was talking about. If you're running those workloads on-prem and in 4 different IaaS providers and, somewhere else, this gets really complicated to think about the trust relationships between all of these things. So it gets you can increase the complexity very rapidly by becoming multi-network enabled.
And look who we have just joined us, Richard Rushing. Paul Landsey, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much. A tip of the hat to Paul Landsey, everyone, COO over at Remediant. And there we have Richard Rushing, which I don't know what happened, but thank you so much for joining us, Richard, for coming here.
Sorry for all the trouble and everything else. I apologize for that. It's always
no worries. We're glad to have you here. It's awesome to have you here. And unfortunately, you missed our first game, but we got plenty more games coming up. And by the way, let me remind everybody, get your bad ideas in. And by the way, we want to hear your 10% good ideas as well. And let me also, I'm sorry, the Tarun Desikan did actually have some answers here. Software-defined perimeter. Yes, that's a good one. Least privileged access. Yes. And Carta. That I did not know. So those were 3 other terms for.
I think microsegmentation also was thrown up there.
Which one? Microsegmentation?
Yeah.
Is that we consider that? Also, you guys being that you don't have headphones, you may need to ride your mute microphones back and forth. All right, Rich. Now that we have you on, let me ask you the same question. Well, let me ask you an open-ended question about Zero Trust. I don't know if you've heard what we've been saying so far, but we've talked about whether it's complicated, different than identity access management, and also about how it's changing in these multiple architectural environments. What's your thoughts?
It very much is. And it's one of the weird things. I always look at the classic way when you explain Zero Trust to people is think about when someone says spicy food. It means different things to different folks that are there. And that's a perfect example. What's hot to somebody is not. And the same thing for Zero Trust. Sometimes it's authentication, sometimes it's there. Mm-hmm. It's literally an architecture, and you really should think of it not necessarily as an architecture, but as an ecosystem. There are multiple components that need to seamlessly interoperate together to provide the user the function that's there. You can put Zero Trust in your environment, and if I have got to type in all sorts of credentials and jump through all sorts of hoops, it's not going to be impactful for an organization. No one's going to deploy it. No one's going to do it. Needs to be seamless in that side of it. But it's also a phased architecture. You don't have to jump in to the deep end of the burning pool. You can kind of slowly trickle into the point of it and build out what you want to be able to do.
It's a journey, like all security is. So let me go to you, Vivek. And by the way, next week, if you guys are all still interested in Zero Trust, our topic in virtualization is going to be very much sort of still kind of riding that conversation, if you will, because we're going to be talking about using virtualized architecture as sort of like building a secure environment. And we'll also have, by the way, not only we'll have a rep from VMware, but we're also going to have, I don't know if you guys know Edward Haletke, who's like, this guy breathes virtualization as well. But that'll be next week. Remember, click the link at the bottom of the screen. Vivek, let me go back to what Richard just said here regarding being a journey. Is there one way you need to start, or everyone's starting path is different?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I 100% agree with what Richard was saying in terms of it's not just throwing a bunch of tools. It has to work in concert. It's a journey. It's a system. And, like I said, you always have to have that Uber strategy. What is it that you're trying to do? And what you're doing, it starts with protecting your data, right? You don't want the data getting exfiltrated. You don't want your workloads getting corrupted. And then you move from there. And because it's a journey, it can be sort of, you can fill the gaps anywhere, right? So we talked about user identity and access controls. We talked about all the network security that you would need to put in place. Now, one of the things that folks probably should think about long and hard is, obviously everyone understands we're moving away from perimeter-based security, but that east-west is like we like to call it, is the new battleground. And we have to start thinking about how can we eliminate blind spots.
Well, I think that's why micro-segmentation was one of the other terms that was used. By the way, do you have a second browser window of Crowdcast running, Vivek? Because we're getting serious echo off of your machine right now. See if you just make sure you don't have a second version of this Crowdcast running.
Okay.
All right, let me just, what time have we got? We're 17 minutes past the hour, so in just a few minutes, we're going to be putting up our best bad idea poll, so please stick around for that as well. I do want to get Kate Kuhn in here on our conversation. So, Andrew, can you invite Kate Kuhn to join us as well? And, I think Vivek is just refreshing here. Let me throw this to you, Richard. Can user and workload access be simplified, or are we just adding extra burden on users in a zero trust environment? What do you think? Oh, you're on mute. Take yourself off of mute. Whoops, still on mute.
There we go.
Okay, you go ahead, and we'll have Kate join in a second. Go ahead, Richard.
No, I think it's one of the key areas. It's like, yes, it can be simplified. We put a lot of controls and layers to prevent that, from jump boxes going into data centers to all these different things to get those controls that we knew were missing, especially for like east-west traffic and things around that. We have tons of those. The issue you get into is that, how do I get rid of those, and how do I make things seamlessly? We've seen it with like privileged access management and everything else. Simplification of the authentication process. We go through 15 hurdles. Hey, eliminating 10 of those hurdles is a win for any admin, user, anything else that's around there. So yes, I believe you can actually get things to the quote, quote, nirvana of like passwordless kind of authentication into some of those areas using a zero trust model. But it's a lot of work, and you've got to Vic's point, you really have to have a plan, because if you don't, you're just grasping at things, and you may end up with like the classic Hubble telescope scenario. Hey, I didn't line these things up to actually see if this worked when I thought about it, and it doesn't work now. And you want to make sure that as those things go through, and it's also one of the things, you might have different solutions for people outside the organization, inside the organization, should all be the same. On that side of it, you're really defining the access, because that's what you're trying to simplify. If you make it more complicated, people are going to revolt. They're going to be like, screw this, I'll find a way around it.
Let me throw this to Kate. Kate Kuhn is from vArmor. Kate, thank you so much for joining us. What do you think people's biggest hurdles with zero trust, and does the whole concept seem so grandiose it scares the crap out of people?
So I'm going to apologize first, because Zero Trust Baby's just woken up and has decided that he needs a diaper change. So if you hear Zero Trust Baby in the background, my apologies.
You know what? If you need to go deal with that now, we're totally okay.
Oh, no, he's good. But what I was going to say is, I think that the biggest issue or hurdle is the beginning stages. People don't, and I talked to a lot of CISOs about this, people don't know where to start. And visibility, understanding where you have and how you can really get a cross collaboration of all the departments possible. And Richard, you brought up a good point. You don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to go everywhere with it at once, but it's understanding the interdependencies, understanding the relationships that are, going to be in play. And that's not always sometimes apparent. I had a CISO the other day tell me that their biggest hurdle was HR and understanding the interdependencies from the HR systems into how they were going to execute on trust. So, it's not, to your point, the hardest thing in the world. And we've seen this with least privileged access, microsegmentation. There's been a lot of fits and starts, but it's a question of, do we have true visibility and understanding? And then how do we execute what I like to call actionable observability when you get started to make sure that what you're putting in place stays in place?
Very, very good point. All right. Thank you very much, Kate. We're going to be bringing on right now, if we can bring on Drew Brown as well. He's going to be playing our next game. Gentlemen, we are going to be playing the I Object game. And I know Drew knows how it's played. And I'm going to remind you and everyone else, explain it as quickly as possible. It's kind of like a version of musical chairs, but you want to end up with the microphone. The topic is going to be how to build out a zero trust architecture. What will happen is, Vivek, you will be starting. And then Richard and Drew Brown, who was last week's winner of the best bad idea, will at any point say, I object. At the point that they say I object, the time stops. And and they will state their objection, wait until I say sustained or overruled. If I say sustained, then the microphone goes to the other person. If I say overruled, it stays with that person. You can object for any reason whatsoever. Just, I have to either say sustained or overruled if it goes to you. The goal is, after a minute of talking, you want to be the person with the microphone. But keep in mind, every time the time will stop. Drew's not having connection issues. You know what? Let's bring on, you know what? Stuck in accepting and connecting. He entered. You know what? Kate Kuna, I think you would be great at this game. If you're willing to play, come back on. But if you still have baby, let us know. We would love to have you on this game. And we're going to pause this game for just a second until we find out who is going to be our next player as well. No, Drew is here. Is he going to be joining? He's stuck in accepting and connecting. He can't join on. All right. We have zero trust, baby. Let's go to the next question. We're going to go to a question, and we're going to find out whether Drew's going to join us. This comes from Jonathan Waldrop. When adopting a zero trust strategy, when should you take note? He's here. We'll come back to Jonathan Waldrop's question in just a second. All right. There's Drew. No, there. My God, this whole show's been a comedy of errors all day today. I'm going back to Jonathan Waldrop's question. No, is he back? He's back.
I'm back.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Back. All right. Drew, you know how this game is played. No, he doesn't know that.
Oh, funny.
Man, we can't win today, can we? All right, I'm going back to Jonathan Waldrop's question. When developing and adopting a zero trust strategy, when should you take a best of platform approach versus a best of breed /point solutions? My God, this is the grand question of all security. I'm going to start with you, Vivek, on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And, often we see customers buying best of breed tools. And what happens is, yes, best of breed tools you can keep buying. And I think, Richard, you said that pretty well. It has to be a concert of systems. And in that case, best of breed goes out of the window, because really, if you have systems that are working well with each other, that's far more important than bolting on multiple best of breed tools that only create complexity. And in most of the cases, we know complexity is the enemy of security.
So yeah, if it creates complexity, don't do it. All right, Drew looks like he's stable. He's staying there. He does know how to play this game. We're just going to start this. Here's my number one rule for this game. And by the way, some of you take yourselves all off of mute. My number one rule for this game is do not be polite. I can't stress that enough. The game's no fun when you're polite. All right? So Vivek, Andrew's going to start the stopwatch. None of us will know the time. The time will start. And then it stops when anybody objects. It does not resume until I say sustained or overruled. At the end of a minute, you will hear the buzzer sound, and whoever is talking at that point is the winner. Vivek, the topic is how to build a zero trust architecture. You begin.
Well, zero trust architecture, two primary areas to consider. One is securing the user access to the applications in any cloud. That's one area. And the other area is securing the workload access, which is all those components.
Okay, pause right there. What's your objection, Drew?
My objection is it doesn't have to be in the cloud. What about the data that's on the local
sustained?
center,
okay,
the
go
data
ahead.
On the PC. So not just the data in the cloud, but we have to protect the data that's in your local data centers, the data that's on your PCs, because data is everywhere. So that zero trust needs to be applied across all aspects of your infrastructure, both the servers and the PCs, your IAM solution, all of your databases, and so on.
I object.
Okay, what's your objection, Richard?
You're not talking. You also need to apply microsegmentation to the portions of that. So you
Okay,
have to
sustain.
apply
Keep
the
going.
network. So think about zero trust as an OSI model, and all the different layers, whether you start at the top or start at the bottom, have to be included in a true zero trust architecture. If you skip one, that is an avenue for compromise or anything else that's there. So you really have to even start at the human layer and go all the way up to the side of it. And if you take shortcuts, it's there. You have to integrate each of those layers. You can
Richard Rushing is the winner. Congratulations. All right, very, very good. Very good. Thank you very much, Drew Brown, who, by the way, was the winner of the Best Bad Idea. Excellent job. You guys did very well. All right, we're going to go another question right now, and then we're going to play our next game. We do have another cool new game we're very excited about right now. This comes from David Christensen. Security has become a data problem. Do you see ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Architecture? I'm assuming that's what ZTNA stands for. Network access. Network access. Improving or amplifying this. Okay, so security has become a data. So does Zero Trust Network access improve the data problem? Because, by the way, this is a good issue because we've had a lot of guests come on before and go, look, it all just comes down to data. It's actually not user access, it's the data. So how is Zero Trust helping with the data problem? Vivek.
So ZTNA, going back to it, ZTNA, in my opinion, by the way you look at the architectures out there, is primarily about securing the user access with all the identity and authentication, authorization, and applying access controls, device, all that stuff out to the application edge. That's ZTNA. What ZTNA doesn't expand into is what's going on between those applications, whether it's in your private data center or cloud, doesn't really matter, but things that we were talking about, all the communications happening between these micro components and access to data, that component is not covered in ZTNA. So while microsegmentation is a foundational thing there, microsegmentation is not enough because attackers are using known ports and protocols, right? They allow traffic to move laterally and cause damage. So you have to inspect every hop of that east-west traffic as well.
Mm-hmm. Richard, you're nodding your head. Take yourself off mute. Yeah, go ahead. Whoops, no, you just put yourself on mute again. Take yourself off mute.
There we go. No, I totally agree. I think it helps with the data problem because the problem with data is that data is stored somewhere, so there's a problem in itself, but the access to the data. If I strip down that access and said it really is a need to know components of that, then I actually can build it. So the only people that can get access to this data are the people that actually need the data. And most of the time when data gets compromised, it's because it was left open, it was in an S3 bucket. Yeah, we've seen all these of stuff that's there, and that's where it goes. So if I can control the access, and that access is not just authentication, it's the ability for the network traffic to get there. So if I've segmented this segment off and say, you're only allowed to go down here if you're in HR, well, the only HR people are going to be able to see that data and get to that data at that component level that's there. And that allows you to protect that data. So you go from having it 54,000 people have access to it to 150 folks. So you greatly reduce that attack surface around that using a zero trust architecture.
Very good. You were talking about, Vivek, you were talking about east-west traffic and cloud-to-cloud traffic as being a concern. And, we know micro-segmentation is that area. Have we evolved the way we're dealing with east-west traffic? What is your view of it today as to, and compare it to the days when we first introduced the concept of micro-segmentation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are intimately familiar with that. I think a lot of that started with SDN was born and micro-segmentation very quickly became the top use case, I think, 8-9 years ago. So when we say east-west traffic, right, what's important here is, again, we're talking about a crown jewel, so workloads and data. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, similar to what we would do on the user side of things, harden your endpoints, the server endpoints here. So that's where workload security comes into play. And then when it comes to the east-west traffic, while micro-segmentation can do the obvious out-of-band traffic blocking to say, hey, nothing from prod can talk to dev, what about, the in-band inspection of traffic? So we know, for example, ransomware, top of mind for everybody here, it's proliferating through known ports and protocols in many cases like SMB and RDP, which customers keep open. So that's when you really need to start inspecting that in-band traffic, even if it's a VM to VM traffic, with signature and behavior-based techniques, whether it is an IDS, IPS, or NTA and NDR kind of solutions at every hop. If you can do that, then even very sophisticated attacks, whether it's ransomware or even SolarWinds kind of things which come in through your supply chain, you can, while you cannot block them at the perimeter and stop the initial stuff from happening, you can effectively identify anomalies and catch those before damage is done.
Excellent. All right, we are off to our next game, and this is a brand new game for the CISO series, and it's going to have multiple parts. I'm going to tell you this is part Deal or No Deal. It's part Let's Make a Deal. It is part What's Worse, and it's part Trivia Game. All in one. You'll see. It sounds like it's going to be complicated, but it's not. So the beginning of this game, the way it's going to work is you're going to see a board soon. I'm not going to show it to you, but you're going to have to pick things from the board that are mostly bad situations. And so you want to pick as few of those as possible. So that's why we're going to play some trivia games. So you're each starting with 5 picks on the board. If you get the next 2 questions right, you're each going to answer 2 questions about Zero Trust. If you answer your Zero Trust questions right, you get to subtract 1 for each one you get right. So you could go down from 5 to just 3, okay? Now, what you choose will be now your environment. We will then throw a poll up. Oh, by the way, the best bad idea poll is up. Everyone vote on the best bad idea poll right now. That is up right now. But we will throw up another poll for Richard and Vivek, and the audience will choose which of you has the worst environment. Got it? From the things you choose. It'll all make sense when I show it up. But let's first play the trivia game right now. So, Vivek, I'll start with you. I'll let you choose. You have to pick number 1 or number 2 for your first question.
I just pick a number, or do I know what the question is?
Just pick a number, 1 or 2, to determine which question you get.
1. Let's go with 1.
1, okay. Zero Trust is this is a true-false question. Zero Trust is a wide topic, but thankfully it starts and stops at the company's front door. So long as work-from-home employees are using a company laptop and a VPN, they automatically fall under the existing Zero Trust mandate. True or false?
False.
All right. Why is that false?
Well, because, again, you're just focusing only on the user and the access side of things, right? And that's just one important aspect, but not completely Zero Trust.
And also VPNs can be easily overwhelmed, and many are archaic and clumsy. And as you said, all right, let's go to Richard Rushing. You get question number 2. If we had Zero Trust in place before we had SolarWinds, we would not have had SolarWinds. True or false? Richard.
False. Because
that is correct. Why do you believe that?
Depends on the Zero Trust. If I believe some of the marketing stuff, all I have is like authentication and like, oh, here's an authenticator on your phone and you're good.
All right. So we reported on this on cybersecurity headlines in April. It's unclear if Zero Trust would have stopped the Russians' hack of several government networks and thousands of private companies. But within a Zero Trust model, they would not be able to move laterally to access data or be able to hide for long, as we just discussed. All right. I'll let you choose question number 1 or 2, Richard Rushing.
Let's go with number 2. That was a good one from last time. So.
All right. Creating an inventory of all user devices is included as a component of the executive order signed earlier this year to improve nation cybersecurity, which included a provision directing the federal government to, quote, develop a plan to implement Zero Trust architecture. True or false? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. I'm sorry. True or false?
True.
That is correct. That is correct. It is part of it. All right. So both of you, you've gotten 2 right. Vivek's got 1 right. Here's your question, Vivek. True or false? Adoption of Zero Trust architecture introduces at least a degree of user friction due to the implementation of additional controls. We talked about this earlier.
False.
That is correct. As we discussed. And why do you believe that's false?
It actually, contrary to what it is actually, the perception of the Zero Trust actually improves the end user experience. Because VPN is archaic, it doesn't really lend to a very good end user experience. You've got more modern distributed architectures like the SASE things, which are not only provide security, but provide the most optimal access to the right applications that the user is trying to access.
All right. Very good. Okay, so gentlemen, this is how it's going to work. We have 12 doors for you to choose. One of them is truly fantastic. One of them is truly horrible. The others are middling in between. One by one, you're going to select 3 of them because you each got 2 right. So you don't have to select 5. You only need to select 3. So Vivek, pick a number 1 through 12.
I'll go with 8.
Number 8. Let's see what number 8 is. Oh, storing passwords in plain text. All right, that's in your environment. Richard, pick another number.
Let's go lucky number 3.
Lucky number 3. What do you get? Oh, you got an adware and spyware infection. And by the way, I'm going to make him red. So notice, everybody, that Richard will be red and Vivek will be blue. All right, Vivek, pick which one your environment is. You got 2 more to pick. Pick one more.
Let's go with 11. And
number
5.
11. Let's see what 11 is. Oh, your SSL decryption and firewalls have been disabled. That stinks. Rich, pick one.
Well, let's go. He did craps, so I'll go craps as well. Let's go 7.
Let's go 7. What's 7? Ah, you got the grand prize. You get budget for 10 more headcount. Not bad. All right. You're doing pretty well. Adware, spyware infection, not much a big deal, but budget for 10 more headcount. All right. Vivek, your choice. Pick.
I want to roll here. I'm going to go with 5.
5. He goes with 5. And 5 is... Oh, bringing in food and drink into a server room. Which you shouldn't be doing that. We know that. All right. Now, Richard, there is one gigantic bad one. Let's hope you don't choose it. Pick one more.
I'll go number 2, but I like his bring food and server. That's the server room is actually the cafeteria.
Number
so
2,
I like that one.
a Visher gets the CEO's cell phone. All right. We're going to now put up the poll. Now, these, as we can see, the things that are red, that is Richard's environment, and the things in blue, that is Vivek's environment. The poll is up. What I need everyone to do is the next, and I want you to do it right away. In the next, I'm giving you all 20 seconds. Vote for Rich or Vivek, who has the worst environment. I just voted myself. I'm allowed to vote because I'm the host. And then we will determine a winner right now. So please, everybody, just a few more seconds, and we will determine who truly has the worst environment. And I hate to break this to you, Vivek, but it looks like it's a runaway.
It's a slam dunk, man.
It's a slam dunk. Well, Rich,
This is
got
my business as usual. I've got a CEO's phone number and adware and spyware infections. I'm like, wow.
Rich got the grand prize of the budget for 10 more headcount. Yeah. So, all right.
Well, that's good. That helps because the CEO gave me the budget after his phone number was released publicly. So,
all right, excellent job. I hope everyone liked the new game called This Totally Sucks, which, by the way, we will have audio and fun to this. This definitely needs celebrity pictures. All right, let's get into this. Let's ask a question. We don't have more questions. Oh, Tarun, by the way, we answered that question. So please feel free to answer. Excuse me, Richard needs to say, I'm sorry. What I was say is we're going on to our next questions. I have some more questions here. Oh, here's a good one. Because we talk about zero trust all the time, and some environments are better than others. So Vivek, you've seen a lot of clients. I'm interested to know, what is the most impressive zero trust environment you've ever seen, and what was about it that looks so damn good?
Wow. Okay. Well, I would say, for most organizations are still on that journey. You never really sort of get to a place where like, hey, I'm done, dust it off, and let's just hang up the code and we are zero trust now. Mm-hmm. So everyone's at a different level of maturity and on that journey. The thing that I've seen most impressive, and we all have witnessed this, right, with the pandemic, when all of us here as users became, work wasn't a place that we were going into. Work was the thing that we just did wherever we are, right? Mm-hmm. So this remote workforce, how many of us here have had to, over a weekend, just enable secure remote access for all of our employees, right? And I've seen so many companies be able to do that, right, in a matter of hours, with our own company, 30,000 plus employees over a weekend, secure access for everyone remotely. I mean, And I've seen that with many other companies being able to successfully roll that out, right? So that's been super impressive.
Rich, what's the most impressive environment you've seen? Oh, are you still on mute? There. Okay, good.
Yeah, let's see if I can get
No,
off.
you're off. You're good. Go ahead.
I'm good now. I think the best one that I've seen is kind of like the evolution where you get to the end of that zero trust journey that's there, where you start taking down your firewalls, their perimeter-based technology on that side of it. Because if you follow zero trust architecture and everything else, the systems can defend themselves. The systems are protected. You can only get access to things that are there. Only things that can talk to it are actually there. So you end up kind of, it sounds scary as hell of like, hey, we're going to drop the firewalls on here. But when it works, you're now left with, you can see a lot more. You can see a lot of other kind of things that are going on. And it doesn't matter that idea that, hey, I don't do it. But it kind of shifts the weight. The firewalls allow you to have things that are not patched and open and things like that. And you defeat that purpose. You have to be really good in the architecture components of that to say, I now know what all servers talk to, how we talk to it, how we do it on those sides of it that's there. And it's super impressive when you go, yeah, we don't have any firewalls protecting any of these. And you're like, oh, you're insane. And it's, well, the firewalls are on the devices. They're on the servers. Yes, they're patched, they're updated and everything else. You literally jump to that next level of security maturity and things around that, because you're now affecting everything that's there. But you're not leaning on technology that is like, oh, we're stopping things because if it gets inside, it might be dangerous. At that point, you don't care if it's inside. I can control it. I can get rid of it. It's not going to affect anything that's there. So it's a different mindset, but it's a scary mindset, but it actually works out pretty well.
All right. We have been, people have been voting on the Zero Trust, and we're going to need to play our next game in just a moment. So I need to know who submitted the following bad ideas. The first one being, thinking of Zero Trust the way we used to think of antivirus. It's one and done, baby. Who submitted that one? Please tell us. That's a good one. And then I'm actually not going for the one that's most voted on. I'm going to pick a different one here. The person who also put in, walk around shouting, we're okay, we practice Zero Trust, as all the ransomware screens pop up all around you. So tell me if you've done that one as well. So please let me know who are the two people who submitted those, because we'd like you on for the, of course, that was Ian. Which one was Ian? For later me, which one? I don't know which one was yours, Ian, the first or the second. Which was yours? And who did both of those? One and done was Ian. Okay, one and done was Ian. And who did the ransomware one? We're just shouting like this. Anyone submit the ransomware one? We're going to go to, we have questions. All right. This comes from Matthew Bybee, who's the CISO over at Satcom Direct. Isn't Zero Trust just a relabeling of attribute-based access control? Why did attribute-based access control not take off? And Tarun, by the way, I guess we would refer this as to yet another term for Zero Trust. Vivek, what's your take on it? Oh, number two looks like it was Larry Rosen. I'm sorry, Vivek, what's your take on attribute-based
that's a good
access
point.
control?
And there have been variations of that as well, like identity based segmentation, if you will, right? Like similar stuff where it's attribute-based access. And I think the challenge with that is, attackers have gotten a lot more sophisticated. They're masquerading, they're getting in there with stolen identities and moving through known sort of, the allowed traffic. And that would make, that approach a little bit limited, in the sense that you would still have some attacks like ransomware potentially moving across your environment and causing damage. So while it's a great idea, it's a good sort of approach, it's not enough.
All right. I think, by the way, I'm going to call on audible. We're going to have to pass on our next game because we've got issues all allowed, and Larry won't be able to join us. So, but I'm going to go to you, Rich, right now. And by the way, kudos to both of them. Two great bad ideas. Rich, the Matthew Bybee's question regarding attribute-based access control, why did it not take off? What's its limitation?
I think from the attribute side of it, it's not the limitation, it's the complexities that are there. A lot of times when that attribute, similar to directory-enabled networking, I'll go back 20, 30 years on that side of it. It's the same thing of, I want to give you rights and what you're capable of doing, but the applications have to support it and things around that. And a lot of times the applications were just not good enough. They literally came up on the other side of it that was there. And it's like, oh, you can only have 3 classifications of users. You got admin, user, and something else. You really didn't have that granularity that was required to be able to manage it appropriately. And then it wasn't managed at scale. It was managed on individual systems that are there. So you couldn't roll it across and go, oh, if you're in accounting, you get access to all the accounting. There wasn't that infrastructure to be able to support it. It was more of an individual application side of it. So it may work great for your ERP system, but you can't put it into your HR or finance and things on that side of it. It was kind of one area that you could focus on, spend a lot of money, spend a lot of people, and then maintain it. And that was not a good sign to be able to scale.
All right. Let me remind everybody that the link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's video chat, which is the last one of 2021. Let me also mention our next one won't be for an entire month afterwards. January 22nd will be our next one because of all the holidays and stuff, and there's Monday holidays and things like that. So we will not have another one until January 22nd. So if you want to get your fix, make sure you come next week. And remember, if you register early, you get a chance to win one of these awesome jackets. And so you want to do that as well. All right. We have our poll also up for the 10% better. And I want to echo some of these out because some of these are darn good. I want to get your thoughts, and please speak up if these are yours. So develop a strategy. I mean, this is really what we've been talking about. Pick low-hanging fruit and implement over time, being sure to scope and tailor. I mean, that pretty much is the model, isn't it? Vivek, I'll start to you. Yes?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I think, starting with, I think, was it Kate who had said that? Start with visibility, right? Understand what you have, map out the flows, at least of your sort of applications in your data center, in the cloud, wherever it is, and put in the right sort of strategy there, the controls, right? Segmentation and then in-band inspection for users. Make sure you've got the right endpoint protection for the users, endpoint management, and then access control policy, right? Along with identity, multi-factor authentication out to applications wherever they might be. Mm-hmm. I think, those are some critical things. Most people think starting just with identity is good enough. Like if I did MFA, I'm good. Well, we know that's certainly not going to cut it.
And then added to that, and please speak up if this is you. I mean, and I'll throw to you, Richard, on this. It's just like, have a strategy first before you actually buy a single product. Now, is this a little bit, let me just throw this out. Is this a little bit of a chicken and egg situation? But you still should be educating yourself about the products, but not actually making a purchase until you have a sort of strategy out. But then again, could products inform strategy? What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, no, I definitely so, because it doesn't mean that I've got to throw out everything I have from my networking equipment to everything else and just toss them away. Strategize first on the other side. What do you have internally? What can be leveraged and used for this? We always call it like greasing the skids and everything else. It's the same thing. It may not be the end all be all straight solution, but applying that control to your understanding your VPN and understanding how to segregate the rules and roles of that. No matter what solution you're going to buy, you're going to have to understand where users need to go when they're remote and how they're going to get there. And if you don't understand that, that's there. And then to Vivek's point, you need to understand what talks on that internal network, what systems are part of that. It's great that you can get to the front end, but do I need to get to the database server that's classically behind it? Probably not. There's probably already a connection between the two servers, not for the user, but for the application itself. Understand those flows, understand how things are communicating. Understand that Active Directory is going to talk to everything that's there. So you can't really go, oh, you're only going to talk to somebody. Oh, like, well, not really. It's got to talk to everybody if that's your source of truth. And all those different things, you've got to come up with the side. It's one of those things. You start building the architecture and you refine it and you keep refining it. That's there. You figure out what's not answered today, because that's a big issue. It's like, I don't have this today. I need to investigate that. But the processes and procedures, and anybody that knows me, I'm not that process procedure guy. You really have to understand how you're going to implement this, how you're going to scale it across your organization, because scale is important. Zero trust for one little spot, great, but it's not really helping your organization that much unless those are the crown jewels.
If I may add there, David, I think you had asked there, and I'm curious, like Richard, sometimes tools can inform, right? Like make it easy. Because if you think about it, our environments have changed so much. We are all remote. Our apps are modernizing with microservices architecture is no longer the 3-tier stuff. Our, infrastructure is no longer just private data center. It's multi-cloud, right? We are using multiple areas. So the security architecture, right? Especially like when you start thinking of firewalls or even like, doing the segmentation and inspection of all the traffic, if you're going to keep hairpinning it with all the network changes and complexity, that's trying to like, browse the internet on the Kindle. And I love my Kindle, but I certainly don't want to use the browser on the Kindle, right? And so this is where some of the innovative solutions that have been coming out, where you can use a more distributed software-based approach that give you that elastic scale, right? Along with automation, become important.
And you look at the visibility as one section of it, the controls are another section of it. Because again, if you want to look at endpoint, do you want to buy another firewall for this, or do you want to have something that integrates with the Windows firewall that's going to manage it on the process? Don't know. Depends on your organization that's there. And I think that's kind of the key areas, that parts of these tools are about scale, but you're going to have to do a firewall on something on the endpoint. You can't go, oh, it's going to understand everything, and it's going to be like, we'll make recommendations of what we saw, but at the end of the day, you got to make a decision with what you're going to block, what you're going to allow.
Let me ask both of you guys this question. You have done zero trust journeys, or you're in the middle of the zero trust journeys yourself. You've seen others as well. What do you think is like the biggest surprise? And we can say positive or negative on this. You could be like, oh, I didn't realize this was going to happen. That's great. Or, oh, crap, I didn't realize this was going to happen. What has been the biggest surprise that, you want to alert people to now rather than them finding out later? Vivek.
Well, one of the things that's happened, the surprising thing has been over the last few months, and I think, with all this rise of ransomware, just so many products and solutions just getting as labeled zero trust. We all know it's not a product. It is, it's not just identity. It's not about creating a trusted system. And so that's certainly something to be aware that, yes, it's a journey, it's a strategy, and yeah.
All right. Rich, your answer to this question?
No, I think one of the key areas a lot of times around that is that the worst things that you see is that at some point it's the 80, 90, 10% rule is like, hey, I can do a lot of things really easily, working in data centers and things around that. Well, on-prem locations, what are those today? That great, but when you get to the point, there is a big switch that you flip, and people are off the network. People are not connecting. People are no longer there, and everything to the point of, hey, you need to get asset management correct because you need to know where all your stuff is. Guess what? If you don't know, when you flip that switch, your stuff is not on your network anymore, which in today's age may be like 30 days before you can travel to get to that location on that to fix it back up. And that's the key thing, is like there's not like a granular level of turning up a volume in some of the cases. You get to that kind of, we're done with our journey. We're almost at our journey. Well, let's see what breaks at this point in time. And you do have, and things break. You have all sorts of things that you didn't account for, or anything else you didn't know about that are just now knocked offline, and you have to deal with it. But most of the time, if you've made everything easier for people, when you knock it offline, it's not a big deal. We fix it and it comes back on. If you made things more difficult for people, this is a great way to go, guess what? You knocked the payroll system off the network and no one's getting a check Friday. You know what? You're kind of done at that point in time.
All right. Hold tight right there. I'm going to wrap this show up right here, and I'm going to want your final thoughts on today's topic. Everyone, please stick around. By the way, that our last chat link, that's going to disappear in just a second. Again, if you forget, you can always go to CISOseries.com. There'll be a link at the top of the screen to register for next Friday's video chat. Please do it early because you'll be registered for our raffle to win. So, Andrew, go ahead and change that link at the bottom of the screen to what is going to be our meetup that we're going to have in just a moment. Hey, let's thank our sponsor, VMware. They are an awesome sponsor of the CISO series. They've been extraordinary sponsors this entire year. So thank you very much, VMware. They're sponsoring this week. And guess what? They're going to sponsor next week as well. Hey, guess what? Starting in 90 minutes from now, or actually 95 minutes from now, that'll be 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Cybersecurity headlines, week in review. And guess what? I'm going to be hosting this week. So come see more of me if you'd like. And I'm going to be visited by Paul Truitt, who is the CISO over at Mazars. They're an accounting firm. That's all on LinkedIn, on the CISO series channel on LinkedIn. So just go to CISO series on LinkedIn and you'll find us. Hey, guess what? CISO series is now hiring again. We're looking for an associate producer. So if that's you or you know somebody, just someone for a few years experience, ideally someone maybe out of communications or worked in PR or maybe a little bit of production, we want to hire them. Guess what? Stick around for the meetup. That link is right there at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and click on it now, and I'll meet you there in the meetup just after we wrap up this entire show. And tell your friends to join us. Again, we do it every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, although next week will be our last one for an entire month. And if you'd like to sponsor a video chat, guess what? Just email me at david@cisoseries.com. But I will tell you, our next one available is not until May. We have got a lot booked up coming up as well. So, all right, we have just a few minutes left. I'm going to ask you, Vivek, let's summarize this topic of Zero Trust as to what you want people to remember and go away with now. And then anything you want to make a pitch for VMware as well, like what you guys are doing specifically in Zero Trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I think lots of good discussions here. Zero Trust, certainly in the multi-factor authentication, identity and access controls, while a critical component, let's not forget the fact that we are ultimately trying to protect. Of course, yes, there's data on the endpoints, but the crown jewels in our private data centers, wherever our data is sitting across the multi-cloud infrastructure, private, public, all those workloads, we got to secure those as well, as well as all the east-west traffic, because ultimately it's never just that initial breach of a server that causes the damage, it's the lateral movement. So, keep that in mind, securing user access and securing workload access, two critical components. And then I think lots of good talk about on the chat. I saw observability and having that true orchestration for the SOC becomes important. And yes, I think, again, new tools, the approaches like VMware for us, we are just reimagining security. A lot of us think of VMware as the virtualization company, but the ability to truly deliver new security architectures that are delivered in software at elastic scale, that simplify the security architecture with automation is what we are doing, and hopefully that simplifies your journey to Zero Trust as well as you get on it. So,
all right,
that's all.
Good,
thank you.
Good point. And by the way, how would people get in contact with you, Vivek?
Oh, certainly, you can look us up on the web, LinkedIn, and I'm at Vivek at VMware for anyone who wants to reach out.
Do me a favor, just type that in the chat right there so everyone has it. All right, Richard, any last thoughts? Just give us a minute, your last thoughts on this topic. And by the way, are you hiring at Motorola? Yes, you are. You're muted. Hold on. Can we hear you? Richard? There you go.
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Richard, I can hear you.
Okay.
Are you hiring?
Yes, we're hiring on that side of it. No, I think Zero Trust, when it's a journey, it's a big one. Use the OSI model to go, here's all the layers that Zero Trust has to play in. Where are we comfortable with? You can start at the bottom, hardest, and work your way up. You can start at the application layer and work your way down. Look for easy wins. Virtual environments are great for easy wins because a lot of times these big virtual environments are set up. The people that set them up, they're segmented, but everybody can talk to everybody in the cluster that's there, and you're like, bad idea. Start with easy wins because that's going to get you experience. That's going to get you practice. You know what works, what doesn't work. Be sure to think of ecosystem. Everything has to work together. If you get something that is like, hey, we're the greatest, but how would I tie this into my operations center? How would I tie this into my standard authentication, manual process, creating tickets? If you don't have all of those things built out, you're going to go into spot and run into a dead end or a cul-de-sac, and you're going to have to come back out. So take things a thing, but make sure things are working together and make sure that you plan on that working together instead of making isolations.
That is a really good point and great place to close up. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining our video chat today. It's not over. It is not over. Click the link at the bottom of the screen. Join us in our meetup. It's going to run for a half hour. Get a chance to have FaceTime with people. You'll have a lot of fun. Get over there. Toucan, you'll be a floating head. Click on other people's floating heads. We'll see you there. Thank you to Vivek. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Andrew, our producer in the background. We had a lot of hiccups today, but you know what? I think it all came out all right. I appreciate it.